Hey, what's up? This is Taylor Gray, Ezra Bridger from Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Cantina Conversations.
Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of the Cantina Conversations, the number one podcast in the galaxy. We are back from our long hiatus, and I am one of your hosts, Will Beeman, joined as always by my two Canadian compadres, starting off with the collegiate Canadian, Jackson Wells. Jackson, how are you doing today?
Doing amazing. Stoked to be here. Thank you so much.
We're glad to have you back. I'm
You
very
sound like you're
excited as
forcing
well. And then we also have, joining us as always, the ever lovely, the man of 1,000 words, DJ Gillard. DJ, how are you today?
I don't know if I've spoken 1,000 words in my entire life, to be honest with you. So that's, I'm going to point out Jackson sounds like he's forcing it. I don't think he's that excited to be here.
That's 45, DJ. You're running out for this show.
Did you count?
I was counting. You were talking pretty fast, so it was hard to count all of them, but it is around there.
You're cranking up the
I'll
word
try to talk
count
solar
early.
for you. How about that?
But yeah, so we're back from our long hiatus, and now we're also available in video form because we did have feedback while we were gone that people really wanted a video format to this. So ask and you shall receive. So I think we did our last live stream back in May, I think it was, when we did the Quarantina Conversations live dose. For a lot of fun, but a lot has been going on since the podcast had ended. Jackson, what's new with you these days? Has anything else been any big things happen with you?
No, not really. As everyone had to deal with the pandemic in their own ways, and in many ways we are still dealing with the pandemic in our own ways. So I'm back to school, doing that thing. It's not interesting for anyone. It's as bad as it sounds, but we're doing our best and staying safe as best we can.
DJ, what have you been up to? Anything new and exciting in your world?
I started playing Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, Game of the Year edition, just for Will. So
yeah,
that's been a good time so far.
Nothing else happened to you recently,
Yeah,
DJ?
Nothing else happened since. Now I broke my collarbone. That was the thing that happened.
There we go. Yeah.
Were you like leading me there, and I just didn't go?
Okay. Yeah, we were setting it up for you, but
and then
we got there.
That was a fun time. That was a great time, to be honest with you. A bad couple of days and a chill few weeks.
That 5-week rehab, that's really where it kicked in.
Yeah, it was good time.
And then I had my ankle in a boot, so for a while DJ and I were the two injured of the three. Jackson is the one that's fully healthy somehow, which means we all need to drive to his college campus and take his knees out.
Malnutrition will get me soon.
Just so we can balance it out. A lot of exciting things have happened since the last live stream for me. I finally moved, as you can tell by my backdrop. I finally have the Star Wars room that I've always wanted. Thank the Lord for 3-bedroom houses being a thing, so that way I could dedicate an entire bedroom to my Star Wars setup. I've been doing some Twitch streaming, and that was a lot of fun to dabble in that, but I don't think that's going to be a long-term thing. I've been having fun with it, but it's a little bit more time consuming than I want it to be, especially with how busy I am during the week and stuff like that. But other than that, and hurting my ankle, it's just been a good year for Star Wars and enjoying the media, the content that I've been consuming. Been reading a lot more books since the TV and the movies have taken a break. I've picked up on my book reading from Star Wars. So I've been.
We're not allowed to talk about Alphabet Squadron today, but I feel like I want to,
Yeah, you're really
Jackson's
getting into
hasn't started yet, right? So
I'm gonna try to power through this week.
You're not.
You can knock a book out in 2 weeks.
Here's the thing that I realized is that I got the audiobook, but I realized I probably read faster than an audiobook. So I'm actually spending more time listening than I would be just reading it. So
but here's the thing. You can't do your NHL be a pro. You can do your NHL be a pro career like while you're listening to the audiobook. It's a perfect combo, really, because you can just kind of zone out and do your thing, rack up some assists, and then also read a book. It works out. You should try it with Jackson. That's all I'm saying.
It's very weird to consider that reading a book, though. You know what I mean? Since you're just
Are
listening
you
to
trying
it.
to gatekeep me, Will? Trying to
No, it's just a
gatekeep me?
different. It's just a very new age way of consuming book
Mm.
media. But we do have some topics that I have scribbled down that we can talk about for this first welcome back episode, because as at the time of when this episode drops, we are only going to be 4 days away from the season 2 premiere of The Mandalorian, which we're all very excited about. Obviously, it just was revealed. I think it was yesterday is when that news came out that the premiere is going to be 52 minutes in length. So we're only going to be 4 days away when you're listening to this from almost an hour of an episode written and directed by Jon Favreau.
Mm.
So pretty excited for the return from that. So I think the first thing that I kind of wanted to address and see what you guys had to say about this is because a long running thought of mine has recently changed, and I want us to put on our responsibility caps and do some responsible speculating, because I'm now starting to lean that when her contract runs out at the end of next year, that Kathleen Kennedy will be walking away from the Star Wars franchise. And what's led me to have this change, when I was very not pro that idea at all, I thought she would not only stay on, but I thought she would renew for a very long-term deal. But what's changed my mind about that is the very few press appearances that she has made over the last several months. She's been giving the same very PR friendly answers. Just been saying that Star Wars is taking a step back and figuring out the direction it wants to go in the future, and that they have nothing new to share at this time. And on top of that, there really hasn't, outside of the Taika Waititi film announcement, there has been nothing on the film development side that has been announced or teased anytime recently. So I'm starting to think now in the camp that she's giving all these safe PR options because she is going to let her contract run out. And that's going to end up having a replacement come in. And we'll talk about where we think that might lead next. But I'm curious to hear, DJ, we'll kick it to you next. So I'm curious to hear if you still think that Kathleen's going to be staying on, or if you think she's about ready to head off to another show and make a ton of money there, if she's ready to just build a fortress out of the billions that she's made and retire.
That's what I would do personally. I would not care to continue with making content for this fandom. I'd be like, yeah, I'm fine. Let's peace out, go off somewhere. But I don't know. It would make sense just timing wise. They're like, okay, you do the sequel era, and then like you kind of like have a year where you just kind of lead them off, and then like when you have like a true restart to whatever the next phase of this whole thing's going to be, it would make sense to pass the torch then. So, and when your contract is expiring, then like, what are you going to do? Sign on for another 5 years and lead the next wave? Like that would be, I'd be fine with it. She could do that, but this would be as good a time as any to leave. And what you're saying makes sense. So I don't know. I could see it for sure. But who knows? Whatever she wants to do, I guess. But Jackson.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm leaning towards agreeing. I feel like this is one of those situations where if not now, then like when, like you've gone through this kind of like this Disney merger, and then throughout this like sequel trilogy and kind of like the revamping of Star Wars for like quote unquote modern audiences. And I could see like as DJ said, you've made this money, just go sit and hang out. But I could see this kind of taking a turn because I know Kathleen Kennedy. I'm trying to say this is not like the same thing. She seems very interested in kind of creating like or taking part in the creation of like more diverse stories, specifically like women-led stories. Not that like she's the one acting all these decisions. I'm not trying to spread that kind of theory, but it seems like she
sounds like you fell down a weird YouTube rabbit hole, Jackson.
Could be interested in starting like kind of like something smaller, like a collective, like her own. She's got the money to start her own thing of like helping finance independent film and smaller things, which would kind of be in the vein of what like George Lucas was like originally working to do with Lucasfilm. What you see a lot of kind of the older guard of Hollywood, which she is, I guess, a part of now at this point. Kind of taking that kind of more individualistic approach to filmmaking. Like obviously she's not in a league with like directors because they're doing different things, but kind of in that sense of from a production standpoint, kind of helping lead in some new groups at an independent level as opposed to at the highest level you could possibly be.
Mm-hmm.
I think that could be an interesting career turn.
Yeah. And I mean, even if she did walk away, it's not even really that sad. Like, you can easily get lost in the Twitter and YouTube where she's just hated on. You would think she's the devil, basically. But I mean,
Yeah.
her job was to take the reins for Lucasfilm, George, and make it successful. And the Star Wars films made back their purchase price from Lucas or from for Disney in 4 movies. And she's coming off of 6 Emmy wins with The Mandalorian. Star Wars Rebels won Emmys. Star Wars Resistance, even though that was only 2 seasons and very early childhood oriented for its audience, also won some Emmys. So it's not like everything she made was a failure. Like, the only argument you could really make is, I guess, the critical reception to Rise of Skywalker and then the fan reception to Solo. But those are 2 very complex like answers. There's really not one thing you can put the finger on and be like, this is why Solo did how it did, or this singular reason is why the Rise of Skywalker did how it did. So I don't think
making Star Wars movies is like, if you make 6 of them, you're gonna have, or 5 of them, sorry, you're gonna have some hits and misses. You know, like the fandom is so diverse at this point that it's like it's gonna happen. Like, you're not gonna knock it out of the park ever.
Right.
So.
Right. And Jackson, I had never even thought about her possibly leaving to start her own film production company that kind of helps lift female voices in Hollywood. And I could actually really see that, as opposed to her just straight retiring. And I think that would be pretty cool. But like, in my mind, I don't know if you guys have anything in your head that you could be like, well, I know who should replace her then. Like, I don't think it should be Favreau or Filoni, but I think the person in my mind that would do it and would be a good fit to keep the ship going the way it should be is John Knoll, who's been with Industrial Light and Magic, I mean, almost since the beginning, and he's been involved with every Lucasfilm creation pretty much, and he's still very hands-on with it. He was one of the people that came up with the pitch for Rogue One. He is the person that spearheaded the old school visual effects style that Mandalorian and blended that with all of the volume stuff. And he was prominent throughout the Disney Gallery series. He is prominent in that documentary that came out online from ILM about the creating of the Riser Crest documentary that they made. They made like a 20-minute documentary just about like the old, where they recreated Dykastraflex and everything to like film the Razor film and stuff like that. So he's always been kind of like a top figurehead for ILM, and he's been involved in the Star Wars franchise, knows the Star Wars franchise. So I think he's got the experience to where he could make sure movies are starting at the story idea and being released and make sure they're done smoothly. And I think he would know who's got that it factor to make Star Wars feel the way that Star Wars should be feeling. So I think he would be a very good replacement. I don't think it's an obvious choice, and I don't think it's really that likely, but that's who I could see taking the mantle next if anybody does. I don't know if you guys have any kind of theories in your head on who you think could take over the mantle or not.
I think it's one of those things that people talk about a lot online of like, who's in charge of these things, and like, is it creatives, is it business people? I think Kathleen Kennedy has walked that line very well of like, hey, she's a producer, like that's her job, but she's also like worked very closely with the creative departments of every team. So I think it's not one of those things where it's like, Jon Favreau should do this because he directs cool Star Wars stuff. Like, I think your kind of suggestion is more in touch with like an understanding of like heading up one of the largest studios in America and how that like needs to be run from like a actual production standpoint.
DJ, do you have anyone that you'd like to see take the
Not
reins?
not specifically,
No?
really. No.
Yeah.
Like I don't know
mean-
that I'm not that so deep into the bowels of Nicholas's films production offices, to be honest with
Right.
you. So
Okay. But one thing that is kind of sad though, that kind of goes along the lines with this though, is I did read a report recently that, I mean, everyone thought it would happen right when the buyout happened in 2012, but it does seem Disney is ready to close down the Lucasfilm offices and move them to new offices down in Burbank,
I did see that. Yeah.
which is kind of sad from a nostalgic point, and it's also kind of ironic in a way because like George Lucas picked the San Francisco area because he wanted to get away from the Hollywood hustle and bustle and prove that filmmaking could be done away from Hollywood. And then now that he's sold his company off to like the largest media conglomerate in the world, and now they're going to move his
Bringing him
offices
in.
back to where Hollywood
Yeah.
is, where he wanted to get away from to begin with, which is just sad though, because I haven't been able to visit that campus yet and like see the Yoda fountain and everything. And that's something I've always wanted to do. And that was something that was again on my short list of 2020 while I was out in LA, to make the 6-hour trip north to San Francisco and stop there for a little bit. But the global pandemic helped put a halt to that. So
Yeah.
hopefully there'll
He
be
became what he
a
swore to
time and
destroy.
chance. Yeah, hopefully there's a time where I'll still be able to do that before it's too late. But
They're definitely going to do something there, I would imagine.
yeah,
Yeah, it'll be cool.
They'll turn it into something. They won't just let it sit vacant or anything. But moving on to the next topic, it's kind of a larger topic now, just because it seems like every few weeks he does a new interview and expounds more on his answers. So I've just kind of got it labeled. Let's kind of go over and talk about the John Boyega interviews, plural, because there are multiple now. So the first one that kicked off this whole thing was about, I don't know, I think, what do you think it was, about a month ago when he did that
was in
GQ for
August.
the British GQ magazine, where he kind of came out and was talking about his experience as an actor and how he felt that African American voices were still being buried in storylines. And he used Star Wars as an example because obviously that's the franchise he has the most exposure with and is the
Yeah.
largest with.
He's familiar.
Yeah, he's a little familiar with the Star Wars franchise, and he kind of felt like his character Finn was buried throughout the trilogy, and he kind of expounded on it from there as well, just to carry it from not only just Star Wars, but his experience with movie making as a whole so far and how he's viewed things in Hollywood. And then he's followed that up with later interviews for other outlets like Entertainment Tonight and Yahoo News and stuff, talking about like, well, now he would come back to Star Wars. If there was like a Disney Plus series, he would come back as Finn. So he's kind of changed his tune a little bit on the where he's absolutely done with Star Wars, but like, no, he's like, well, maybe I would, if something along the lines of like what Trevorrow's storyline for Finn was, where he like led the Stormtrooper uprising and Coruscant and stuff like that. So if something along those lines were written up for Finn, basically he would come back Finn if Finn could have his proper due as a lead in the story, which would make sense. I could see why you would want that. But Jackson, we'll start with you because I know you've got opinions on this. So what do you think's just in general, encapsulating everything that's been said about the John Boyega stuff? What are your opinions on that, especially coming off of like how you're such a massive Last Jedi fan, and the 2 paragraphs that they quote him in seem to be a little negative sounding towards that film.
Yeah. Obviously that's like we said like a month or so ago now, so I'm trying to remember exactly what he said, but if I remember correctly, he was talking about how his story is kind of like pushed to the sidelines within that narrative in favor of like Rey and Kylo Ren, which is like absolutely true in a sense. Like they were obviously the standouts. I think that their story within The Last Jedi, I think, is still really important and really impactful. And I think it is kind of the natural progression and conclusion, not conclusion, but like natural progression at that point of the story. Obviously, I'm not going to like be like, oh man, Boyega doesn't get it, because he obviously gets it. Like he gets it better than most. But reading that, I was like kind of interested at his perspective, just as someone who is like really likes his story within The Last Jedi, not because they pushed it down and like they hid him away, but because I think it's like actually impactful, like what he's doing within that story. Um, yeah, I think he brings an interesting like and obviously like personal perspective to that. And like you said, like that like rumored like Trevorrow thing, whatever. Like I feel like that the Trevorrow's like cut in its own ways, like a whole can of worms of like, is it good? Is it bad? What is it? Is it real? I think the Finn stuff in that story is at the very least more substantial than what ends up happening in The Rise of Skywalker.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think honestly, like Boyega Boys for life. I love that dude. I'm really excited to see like where his career goes forward. And honestly, if I were him, I would just be done and move on
Oh
to
yeah,
what's
I would never come
next.
back.
Mhm.
Because I think he's got I think he's got a nice career ahead of him as opposed to like some Star Wars actors that just kind of
Mhm.
did it and then didn't have much. I think he's definitely got a future. At the very least, like socially, he's definitely still in the conversation of things, even more so than like Daisy Ridley, who's kind of like for her own reasons not really involved online very much.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would definitely echo all that. I can't. It's I kind of want. Do want to see what they would do with like the Coruscant and the Stormtrooper uprising, all that kind of stuff. I would love to see what they would do with it, but opening that can of worms just seems like a bad idea to me. We talked about Duel of the Fates and what you could do with it, like novel, like whatever. But we talked about it at length. But I don't know if I would open that can of worms at this point. So, but if he wants to come back and if you really wants to see that story told, I'm more than happy to check it out for sure. I'd be very excited. But we'll see what happens. I think the safer bet is that he's probably going to be done anyways, and
Mhm.
he's just saying it to just keep the door open for himself if they ever want to come back and do it. So
There's like not a history of actors really coming back for stuff. Obviously, that's changing now with the way Disney Plus is running like limited run series, but the precedent is not in his favor at the very least.
Mhm. Yeah, and I would be kind of surprised to see if he came back at all, just because I don't know what kind of story they could tell with them, like with Finn
Mhm.
anyway. Like they could probably adapt the Duel of the Fates script storyline into something, because I guess at the Rise of Skywalker, the First Order isn't technically like gone. That like that is
yeah,
just like
you could do it.
encapsulation of like
That's
the
the same
big
Star Wars
battle.
story.
It's like, yeah, it's like the big battle that starts
Mhm.
the end. So like there is something towards the end where they could make a new battle up that could go to Coruscant and have him lead an uprising there to continue the downfall of the First Order and stuff, and that
Yeah,
would end
it
up
doesn't
making
even
it
have to be
work
a battle.
fine. But
Like
yeah,
you could
it could just
just
be
you
something
could
he
just
would want to
somehow
do.
adapt that
And
storyline.
right, so I guess there's a way they could do it. I don't think they will. I was very in the camp when we did our episode about the Duel of the Fates script that they should release that as like a non-canon on purpose novel and stuff like that. But the discourse online hasn't gotten any better still, even with time apart. So I don't think the fans deserve that anymore.
No, the problem is I feel like the stormtrooper gone like that like aspect of Finn's character is like the most not it's like so interesting that I
Mhm.
want to see more of it, but like I don't know where and when and like when I say I want to see more of it, it's I want to see John Boyega doing more of that, and I don't see where that really fits. So
Right. And he could even be like, he could have his agent go to Lucasfilm and be like, hey, John's interested in coming back if we do like this storyline. They could just come back and just be like, well, we did that. Like he had former stormtroopers with him on the
Yeah.
raid of that Star
Didn't you see the scene
Destroyer
with
at
him
the
and
end
Jaina?
of Rise of Skywalker. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like we've covered that. And I think a lot of his frustration came from where he was marketed so heavily for The Force Awakens, and then like internationally and as a story, he is not prominent after The Force Awakens. Like
Yeah. And
I
the idea
think,
that he might have been force sensitive after that movie and like where
right,
was that going and like
like
all
it
the things that
even
didn't
like
happen
I
that
just
changed.
rewatched The Force Awakens within the last week, and I'll probably rewatch it again later this year because we are approaching the 5-year anniversary of it already. But I think the biggest flaw, even though every time I rewatch that movie, I still love it as much as I did the first time. I still think that movie is awesome. So I still love it as much as I always do. But like now in hindsight, with having all 3 films done and knowing how the story plays out, I still think the biggest problem with The Force Awakens was, since JJ was not originally planning on coming back, he was just spending so much of that movie just being like, here's a story thread, here's a story thread, here's a story thread, to where there's so many story threads that there's just no way any director that followed that up could cover all of them.
Yeah, like
Um,
the Last Jedi, like people complain about it like not covering all this stuff, and it's like, where are you supposed to cover it? That movie
yeah,
is
like
dense with
like
plot.
there's obviously something there where you could have taken Finn to being force sensitive. He could have been a Jedi with Rey, and then by the 3rd film, the 2 of them could be like Jedi warriors fighting by side. But that's one of 5 million plot threads that were left open. So that's just not the one. That's just not one that was followed. And I can't really fault the next filmmaker for that, to a sense, because when you have 5 million and you only have enough movie to cover 5 of them, like how are you going to pick? Like really?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just kind of thought that stuff was interesting. That he's been saying all that, and then he kind of made himself sound so done with Star Wars as a franchise in general. And then it was just last week when he had that interview where he was like, well, I'd come back if they did like a Duel of the Fates type story or something for Disney Plus. He's like, I'd even come back and voice the character if it was animated. And I was like, oh, well, so if they do like a sequel animated series, then we'll know Boyega would be in for it then, because he could just be in his trailer and do dialogue in between takes of another film that he's doing.
Yeah.
One random thought I just had while you were saying that, like the quote that he had, I can't remember the specific quote, but it was oddly specific about like the Duel of the Fates thing, and like that leaked. Like that's not even like supposed to be common knowledge. So I wonder like if
He
the
had
conversation's been had at some point, or if like it might not be a huge, they might not be like in talks, but like if somewhere along the lines that's actually been brought up and something they're thinking about doing. I wonder.
I mean, it's very possible too, just because he is Finn in Star Wars, is that he has a script that, because I mean, if there were 2 drafts of that script done, all I did was I've gone through film school. I haven't been on any Hollywood production, so I don't really know how like the process of handing out scripts work. I don't know if actors for films get one from the first draft to start looking through, or if they don't see a script until it's finally done. So I don't know if that's even possible. It's possible that he has that first and second draft, or he's like
scrolling through Reddit looking for leaks.
I was gonna say, or he's on Reddit reading all
One
the
of the
script
2.
leaks that way. Because what's funny is when the Rise of Skywalker plot points were leaking out through Reddit, everyone thought the leaker was John Boyega. like that was the big fan theory, was like the reason why these plot points were coming out so detailed and accurately was because it was him leaking them to everything. And I think it would be kind of funny if it was, where he read Duel of the Fates and thought that script was great, but he didn't like the Rise of Skywalker script, so he's like, I'm gonna just ruin the movie for everyone. And
it must be crazy if he hadn't read it beforehand, and if he when it leaks on Reddit, like he found it and he was like, I gotta read this. Like I wonder if that was a thing.
Yeah,
for those actors be like, what were they gonna do with me? Like what was going
on? But are you guys still on the same team I am, where I still want John Boyega to be James Bond?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I think he'd be a great James Bond.
I don't know
I
if
agree.
I could see some hesitance in him jumping into another large franchise film.
But he'd be the lead.
He would be the lead. I would love to see. I'm curious to see what he does next. I've read that like Attack of the Block 2 or Attack of the Block, I can't remember, is still like kind of a thing. I would love to see him. He's so good in that movie.
Yes, see, that's the one film of his I haven't seen yet, is Attack of the Block.
I've
heard good things though. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What about Pacific Rim 2 though? Did you guys like that?
Didn't see Pacific Rim 2, unfortunately. I missed that one.
We're Evangelion fans here for our mech shows.
Oh, that's right. You guys, you're the anime fans.
The purists.
Yeah.
So moving on to another Star Wars actor that's been quite popular in the web reporting the last several weeks now has been Gina Carano's comments that she's been making on social media for the past several months, because I do feel, since we are going to be covering Mandalorian season 2 anyway, we should kind of address this stuff ahead of time anyway, because it's something very important. But she has been kind of shockingly breaking the mold of what Star Wars actors are like on social media. And I not you're free to believe what you want, but it's just been very weird to see an actor that's been very outspoken against masks during the pandemic, against the Black Lives Matter movement, against trans rights, people putting their pronouns in their Twitter profiles, and like her and Pedro Pascal even kind of like went at it a little bit on Twitter one day when she was like asking, she was like, I don't understand why people are doing this. And Pedro Pascal is a relative that is either trans or non-binary. I don't have it pulled up in front of me, so I don't know which one it is. I don't want to get it wrong, so I'll include both. But so he was like explaining like the reason why people do that, and it's for inclusivity and stuff. So she said she didn't really fully understand it, and then went on to make the pronouns in her profile beep beep boop, like a computer. Which I don't know. I unfollowed her on Twitter after this, so I don't know if they're still like that on her profile or not. Hopefully she's removed it by then and had some common sense. But I have noticed recently, as season 2 has been ramping up, and there's been rumors even of her getting a spin-off show, that she's made a few more Instagram posts saying like how she loves everyone in the LGBT community and everyone of all races, and that we're all in this together. And her and Pedro have been interacting more positively towards each other on social media. So either she's playing the game, or somebody finally had to sit down with her and we're like, all right, Gina, we kind of have to explain some things to you, because you're going to end up getting killed off in Mandalorian. Don't stop it. So Jackson, I'll bat this one over to you. What's kind of been your thoughts on everything that Gina's been kind of doing lately?
This is something that I was thinking. I like haven't thought about much because I finished thinking about it. But like back when we were like, it was this weird timing for me where she was like saying all these things that like I like unequivocally like disagree with and I think are horrible things to say. Right as like we were like getting ready to reveal that we were going to record a podcast about a show that she is like a prominent star of. And I thought that like there's like no like it was also like rolling up around kind of like the stuff regarding like Harry Potter and J.K. Rowling, and I was like, man, I'm like really into this Star Wars thing, and I'm in for this Mando thing. So it's obviously like I unequivocally like denounce anything that she's ever said about that, and I'm not particularly interested in any of her responses to that. I think education is important, but I think she was in the process of being educated and didn't really seem to take super well to it. So I don't know. My response, like I tweeted out that we were coming back, and then I was doing some personal research, and I made a donation to a local LGBT plus community group in my area, and encourage others to do the same. I'm not a fan of necessarily the buy someone's thing and then give money away because you're still kind of fueling them. But I think this situation is a little different. She's not the creator of something or like the main thing. So yeah, I encourage people to educate themselves on issues revolving mask wearing, which I didn't think I would have to maybe suggest to people, but apparently, as well as Black Lives Matter and pronouns, it's really like not that hard to understand. So you've got the internet at your fingertips. Do your research and support groups where you can and when you can. I obviously am in college, so I don't have like unlimited funds to give to people as much as I would like to, but any small thing helps. And yeah, I don't know if anyone else has anything they want to add to this.
Yeah, I would
PJ?
echo everything. Obviously, obviously we as the show would denounce all those kind of things. But yeah, like we'll be honest, like we're three white guys here, like we're not the authority here, so obviously we would defer to those kind of voices. Yeah, everything that she said, I obviously did not agree with, and it's kind of a tricky situation now doing the show, and we'll see how it goes. Like, we'll see what her character does and how they handle it, how Disney handles it, and how everyone goes about it. But obviously, we at the show will try to do our best to be as inclusive as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something the Cantina community is never going to have to worry about. We're always going to be inclusive and welcoming to everybody and anybody. And like Jackson said, he did research and found a local charity group to his area, and we're working in the three of us to find one that reaches on a more broader scale that we can include in the links of every episode. That way people can donate that way if they want, as well as research things on your own. For every episode of The Mandalorian that comes out, I will be donating. So for 8 episodes, I will be making 8 donations myself to certain charities that I find through research myself. I feel like as hypocritical as it may end up sounding to disparage her opinions and then still watch the show, I do kind of agree with Jackson. She's not creatively involved. She's not the creator of The Mandalorian. She's not the creator of Cara Dune. Cara Dune's a cool character. I'm not really that attached to her, so if she doesn't fix her behavior, that's an easy character they can kill off, and then we'll never have to worry about seeing Cara Dune again. Do I think the spin-off rumors of her are true? I think they were at one time, because I think they were tossing around development ideas for several characters, but I don't think that's ever going to take off. And I don't think Cara Dune is a strong enough character to carry an entire series on her own anyway. So I think making a spin-off of that character is, I mean, she's got the cool backstory. I don't think Gina has the acting.
I don't think she is. I don't think she is, but the pitch that it was going to be her and Bo-Katan, I was like, if it wasn't for all this stuff, I'd be like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah,
let's do it.
I'm
ready.
But
after this, no, I don't think it's gonna happen.
She'd be such an easy character to kill off though, and that would kind of put an end to it too. I think her turnaround on social media though, has somebody has come to her and has been like, you need to like not do that.
I'm sure there's like 17 people from Lucasfilm knocking her door down.
Yeah, the anti-mask stuff and the anti-Black Lives Matter posts didn't bother me that much, just because of where I live in the country. Outside of like my city and 2 other cities in my state, I live in a very heavily anti-mask, which is why our state's spiking in corona cases. So that's fun, yay! But so like I'm kind of like numb to that crowd by now, so those didn't bother me as much. But it was really when she started like the mocking pronouns and stuff is really when I was like, all right, we got to kind of pump the brakes on things here. That's a little bit too much, especially when the lead character of the series that you are in is even adding you on Twitter, explaining it to you, and you're still like, well, I'm not understanding. Well, that's your time to understand. And I don't know. That whole thing was just pretty wild to me. I was very surprised.
She could have had a Drew Brees moment.
Yeah, that was her Drew Brees moment. She just hasn't addressed it yet. She chose not to have her
Drew Brees moment.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know what that is.
Drew Brees is a football player.
Yeah, we'll tell you about it later, Jackson. But
he had some hot takes, and then the team threatened to not play with him anymore.
Tread on it. Yeah.
But then he was like, you know what? I learned some stuff over the past day. And
I was very wrong. And
yeah.
But yeah, so that's going to be something that we're going to be doing going forward as a show. At least as long as they keep Cara Dune alive. As soon as she's killed off, then we can have Ewok victory party on the Forest Moon of Endor.
We can still donate after though. We're not going to stop. We're not going to stop campaigning. So.
Right. But so that's something we're going to be doing though, and something we needed to get out ahead of time before Mandalorian does start. So moving on to kind of the final section of the welcome back episode. We weren't planning on going too long, just because we just kind of wanted to be like, hey everybody, we're back and at it, and we're here for your viewing pleasure now as well on YouTube, so you can see
Trying out
our
this new
beautiful
format.
faces.
You can watch me drink water. It's great.
Yeah, DJ's drinking water. He's got a box and a coat hanger behind him. Jackson's got that great
Yeah.
mustache.
I'm
It's a
pretty
storage room,
sure.
sorry.
I'm pretty sure. In previous episodes that we used to record audio only in like the warm rooms, I'm pretty sure I recorded a couple episodes shirtless. So this is definitely different.
Yeah, you got to make sure you're clothed. Make sure you're not like
Mhm.
eating something at the same time. But
Believe it or not,
Um,
Jackson, I was always clothed while watching or recording this show. So
yeah, because a little fun fact is, even though we were doing audio only for our shows in the past, I have found out by being a guest on other podcasts, this is not always the case. But like
Mhm.
most people record their audio only shows still on video with each other, but we didn't do that.
Yeah,
We did everything only audio only. Like it was basically
Yeah.
like Jackson and DJ and I were just having a phone call with each other.
to be fair,
Which
I think we
is what-
tried.
Yeah,
I think it was just like my internet was really bad at the time, and then I had to change that setting in Discord that just magically fixed everything.
yeah.
But yeah,
I think
I
that's what strengthened us to find a groove conversating so well, though, is because like
we had to.
we had to, because we can't read each other. The only thing we had to go off of was our voices.
Yeah.
And like minor little hiccups you hear in someone's voice where there's like
Mhm.
you think they're trying to say something, you know.
Yeah, but I think that only made us stronger in the end. But we do have some questions that came into us through our Twitter profile, which you can follow at Cantina Convo. And we'll start with the first question that we had gotten, and that is from Caesar at Caesar04. And he asked us, with Disney focusing now on streaming rather than film due to COVID, do you think we will see more series in development instead of Taika's set of films? And if those films are even happening anymore?
Mm.
Jackson, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I think anything attached to Taika Waititi is gonna like be a hot fire in Hollywood. So those movies are definitely happening. I think this is a question that doesn't just extend to Star Wars. I think this is like the whole film industry as a whole.
Yeah.
Um, even regardless of COVID, like the switch to streaming of like series has changed so much, like in terms of production value and then like return on that investment. So I think you can, like even like when Disney Plus first started and they announced all the series that are most of them haven't even come out yet. I think we're going to see more and more of those, and I think it's potentially that we might actually see movies come to streaming. Big stuff's been dropping on streaming for a while now. Like The Irishman, one of the biggest movies last year, was a Netflix original. So I think as studios get more comfortable with releasing just on streaming, which they're going to have to for the time being, I think we'll see some more streaming. And I think hopefully, I honestly think the television series format is a really interesting and different way to tell stories from film. So I'm hyped for more Star Wars longer form content. I like The Mandalorian. I'm excited to see what they do this season, and then I'm excited. I'm like this Cassian series. Like, what's going on there? Like, I'm so curious to see what they do with something that's a little less defined. I can't wait for stuff like that.
Yeah, I think they're already going in that direction anyways, at least for Star Wars. So I don't know how much it's really going to shift there. One thing I would say though, I think this might be like the straw that breaks the camel back for them to start doing alongside the shows, animated shows, to just start doing animated like not feature, but like direct to video feature films like for streaming. I think this would be the time where you're like, oh, this is something we could probably do, considering how many people are like getting much more into streaming like action movies and like them actually coming out day and date on streaming. Like I think that's something they've wanted to probably do for a while. You look at like when they're doing Clone Wars, like they were putting out DVDs where it's like, here's the collection of the 3 episodes, and their movie, like the Clone Wars season 7, like the finale, like a lot of people were trying to position that as like a short like movie like kind of thing. So I wouldn't be surprised if that like is the straw that breaks the camel's back here for them to be like, you know what, we're just gonna get 2-hour long animated Star Wars movie, and it's gonna be in canon. Like it's gonna be a whole different thing. It's gonna be disconnected from anything else. Like we'll see. Maybe it's adaptations. Maybe it's something else. I think that could be interesting.
The risk of the theatrical release being alleviated by like streaming is certainly like a factor. And to like look at what WB has been doing for literally like decades now, just putting out like 4 movies a year, like of varying degrees of quality, but like it's really easy to do as long as their expectations are put in the proper place.
Yeah, and it seems like it's kind of making money. It's like they're not they're not selling like crazy, but like they've been doing it for such a long time. Like it's clearly profitable for them to just put these out there, and people like them, so keep doing it.
Yeah, and I think if any company, because like you said, Jackson, like this is not just Star Wars specific. This is going to be Hollywood across the board right now. And I think if any company, despite how much money they've lost this year, I think I read somewhere that said Disney's lost $4 billion this year. As a company, which is weird because they can lose that much money and still be like, okay, like they're still filming things.
They'll
so
still
like they
probably
weren't
write
even
a
like,
check to buy someone
whatever.
else.
They got their Avengers theme park that they haven't even opened yet. That was supposed to open in July. So I mean, like they're still sitting on stuff. But I think if any company is in a position to kind of take the ball here and run, it'll be them, because I know Warner Brothers is using some form of like the volume themselves, because like Favreau made that technology or helped make that technology using like an open source game engine, like the Unreal engine. Yeah, like the Unreal engine, like we could download and make our own volumes. Could be anywhere we want while we record in the background.
I can do it right
but
here.
we could make it so we're all in the same room, and that would make it. But I'm saying like WB's starting to make their own version that the Batman is using for some shots, but like Disney already has theirs like set up and ready to go, so they can just keep going. Because I'm rewatching The Mandalorian right now to prep for season 2, and I'm watching on my new TV for the first time, which has such better picture than my old TV did. So I like the picture's so much clearer, and I still can't really tell that the set has ended and the volume stuff begins on shot. So they've already figured out how to blend it masterfully as well. So I don't think it'll slow them down at all if they wanted to even start using it for movies and do things that way. And it's kind of like what you said, DJ. We did talk about this in the past, where I think Star Wars benefits and should go for TV series more. I know a lot of people are hung up on the fact that there's 3 untitled Star Wars films that have a 2023, 25, 27 date, I think is what they're at now.
Did it get pushed?
They've moved several times. I can't remember what the exact dates are anymore. But like that first one will be Taika Waititi's. That's still happening. But after that, it could be a sequel to his. It could be another film. I don't think they're going to be doing
Johnson trilogy.
I don't think they'll be doing an ABC movie format anymore. It's going to be this movie's getting made, and then this movie's getting made, and then this movie's getting made. Well, this movie was successful, so then following movie C will be the sequel to movie A. And because I don't think they're going to focus on the trilogy format thing for a long time until they inevitably make episodes 10, 11, 12 and Filoni it. So I think we're at least a decade away from that happening. I mean, and a decade away just from that being announced, because Filoni's going to rack up the live action directing experience that he'll need through live action. Because I think once the Mandalorian stuff keeps rolling, he'll keep working on that, but he's definitely got to be doing a live action something with Ahsoka to carry on a Rebels sequel. There's no way he's leaving Rebels open-ended like that. I just don't see it. Moving on to, unless anyone has any last thoughts on that, DJ?
Anything? Good.
No? Okay. The next question we have is kind of along those same lines, was from Matt at Matt Radish. And he was talking about how, what's that?
It's a good name.
Yeah, it is a good name. There's allegedly they're going to start location scouting for Taika Star Wars movie by the end of the year, because plans can change. So obviously it's not
New Zealand
set in stone, but I
they'll
think
probably
it's
film in New Zealand.
I think they'll do some in New Zealand because, one, that country in general has COVID on lock. Two, Taika's from there, and
Thor Ragnarok.
Are all of his movies from New Zealand?
I think everything but JoJo was filmed in New Zealand. Like even Thor Ragnarok is filmed in New Zealand for the most part. I'm pretty sure.
Really?
I didn't know if JoJo had or not. I knew Ragnarok had filmed there, but so like that would just make sense if it was in New Zealand. I'm sure they'll film stuff using the volume as well. since he's got actual hands-on experience with that. So
Yeah.
that even lends to his credit with. Are we still sticking with our prediction that he's playing a Gungan?
Yep, absolutely. No questions asked.
Oh, I hope.
Um,
I hope he's like the
any like
son
new
of Jar
hopes for
Jar.
that film though? The son of Jar Jar.
The
Yeah.
son of Jar Jar, Taika Waititi.
I just want to see what he does. It's so
Yeah.
I know it's gonna probably lean like comedy, but like I still think about that scene in Jojo Rabbit with the shoes.
Mm.
Yeah,
I'm just like, man, if this man could give me a little bit of a, oof, that could be serious.
I think if anyone can blend I mean, he's shown it with the finale of Mando. He's shown to me that he knows how to handle it and not make it overly comedic. Which worked better for Thor Ragnarok just because that's such a like Flash Gordon-esque film. But I think I'm just excited to see what happens. Like, I want to know what time period it's set in. I want to know what's the story at least.
Yeah.
I'm just so curious to see what happens. And if that is in fact going to be the next film that we're getting, we got to be getting at least some story details by next year. I think we'll at least get like what the plot is. I don't think we'll get like a teaser or anything anytime soon.
No.
But
the one
very
thing about this
excited.
movie that's weird is that like I also want to know the time period and more so much want to know his direction, because Taika could do a mockumentary, he could do a full-on action movie, he could do a full-on comedy. I have no idea which direction he could go in. Like I could see any of the others. If you had any other director, I would be like, yeah, they're making a Star Wars movie, like a generic blockbuster Star Wars. Obviously, like it's gonna be that thing. I have no idea. So I'm actually, if they told me the time period, I would be like, that tells me nothing about what this movie is gonna be. To be honest with you. So.
And then Matt also had a follow-up question as well. I don't know if you guys will be able to expound on this much either at all, because I don't know how much I can say on it either. But he said, would you like to see someone besides Hasbro get a crack at Star Wars mass-produced toys? In his opinion,
this one's on you, Will.
Hasbro Star Wars toys peaked around 2008 with the Legacy Collection Millennium Falcon, which retailed for $150. Now the vehicles are way less featured. Yeah. Now the vehicles are way less featured and their cost is 4 times that.
Back in my day.
That's so much money.
I guess I'll start. And if there's anything you guys want to add, you can. I don't know who else could take a crack at it, because like Kenner was obviously the original company that their bread and butter were the Star Wars figures. And that's pretty much what saved them from going bankrupt, made them into the valuable company they were, and then Hasbro later bought them. I am not tuned in enough into the toy industry to even know outside of Hasbro who would do it. Like, I don't know who's the number 2 toy company. Like,
and even so, like that deal would be insane.
Like I know there's like, there's like Lego and then there's Mega Bloks. I don't know who the Mega Bloks to Hasbro is. Like, is that Mattel? Is Mattel, they're a board game company, right? They're not toys, are they?
I think Mattel does toys too, right? I don't know.
I'm not sure. See, I'm not familiar enough with the toy industry to really know about that. As for the pricing situation though, inflation is one part that has to do with that. 2,
shout out to 2008. Great time financially.
2 is Star Wars has become an uber valuable IP again, so they can get away with the cost prices because people are paying them. And they're not only just paying them, but like there's even black market prices for these things above list price on a lot of them commonly. Like the Hasbro crowdfunded Razor Crest figure that they wanted, it's on like its 5th stretch goal now. It's been raising so much money for its to be made, because like they always do like one figure a year where they're like, well, we want to make this toy, but we want people to prove they want it, so crowdfund it, and then it'll reach a level, then they'll add something. Like it added an escape pod, and then it added like a Baby Yoda attachment, but now it's on like its 4th or 5th thing right now. And I remember one did it where it was Jabba's skiff, but it was like and it was like the size of a coffee table. it was so big, and it sold for like $600. But yeah, so like I can't really comment on it. I do agree with you. Vehicles are not featured as much as they used to be in the toys back in the day. I don't know if that's because it was easier to produce or the priorities were just shifted differently. Because like now the priority definitely seems to be like black figures of characters as opposed to the vehicles.
I wonder, one random thing, right? Like, I don't know the industry enough. Obviously, I'm just kind of spitballing. Like, what if like Pop Vinyl were like trying to get into doing other toys, and they were like, because like they
You
would
mean
be
like
the
a
ones
more
that would have like,
traditional action figure?
yeah, like more traditional action, like and they went after that as like their line. Like they have, I assume they have a war chest. I don't know who owns them
Yeah.
that can make something like that happen if they really wanted to. That like I'm just spitballing.
I feel like they would
obviously.
have the cash as a company to compete if they did want to.
Yeah,
They did
I could
like
see
a
something like
different
that.
product than just a pop vinyl.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I
And if
mean,
you
they
did
have
that, like, you could take the
they have
industry over.
expanded into clothing and hats and cereal. So I mean, there is
Gears of War
could,
spinoffs, you know.
yeah. But yeah, I don't know if you guys have anything you want to add on that or not. I'm unfortunately not.
This is a this discourse is out of my price range. I'll put it that way.
I mean, as you can see behind me, I have no problem buying the figures. I just don't know enough about the competition and anything like that to know who could have the reins besides Hasbro. I think they're doing a pretty good. So, well, let me.
Really, I didn't think you would.
Oh, well, see, like even my old figures, these are Kenner brand. So I can't even like look around and be like, well, let's see if I have a figure that's not from Hasbro. But
For audio only listeners, Will is in a room just packed with Star Wars toys, by the way.
yeah, it's my Star Wars museum, as I call it.
We're slowly alienating the people who made us so
It's only taking one episode.
But on our last and final question that we got from Anarcho Samurai at ANCAP_games, they asked, what is one hope, one expectation, and one crazy theory that we have for Mando season 2? So I think that's a pretty good one to kind of end on. My theory, of course, is still, even though I'm very shaky on it actually happening, is that Ahsoka pops up at some point, gives Mando some direction for an episode, and then she leaves, and then that's where we'll pick up the Rebel sequel, which will be a live action with her trying to find Ezra.
To me, that's not a hope. That's just like what I assume is about to happen, to be honest with you.
At this point, I don't know if it's still going to happen or not.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to see as the episodes.
I could see it not happening, but
yeah, I could too, really. But ever since I nailed that Cobb Vanth prediction, I don't really have any wild predictions.
Never forget.
As far as like a hope, like I don't know if you categorize that hope or as a wild prediction, but like Ezra showing up, I think would be like, I don't think it's gonna happen. Like that would be like my wildest one that would get like me really excited. And I think I could see it. Same with him and Thrawn kind of go hand in hand in this, but Thrawn I think is probably actually more likely to.
They certainly go hand in hand.
Yeah, so one of those two would be definitely my hope / crazy theory. Okay. I don't have anything to back it up. Just like that would make sense. Sure.
I'm still holding out to see whether the Rex Boba Fett thing happens. What's going on there? Team Rex all the way. Unpopular opinions. I live for them. That's what I want to see. I'm just curious to see any sort of legacy character coming in. Is what I'd be curious to see. I'm trying to think back. We didn't see that at all in the original series, or like the original season of Mandalorian. I don't think so. I don't know. It's kind of the opposite of what I always say, where it's like, oh, give me something new. I'm like, give me back those old things.
This is the venue to do it, though. You know.
Yeah, now's the time. Then there's been too much talk. So
yeah. I guess my
also
hope
I could see you doing. Sorry.
Nope. Go ahead.
Oh, I could also see as like a crazy thing. Like imagine like someone from the New Republic shows up as a kid. It wouldn't be Han Hanway or Luke, but like something there, like because they got to address it at some point. Like
Mhm.
it's 5 years after episode 6, like in the New Republic's been mentioned so many times. I could totally see them doing like a recasted Wedge that leads into like some sort of Rogue Squadron thing, like something wild. I could totally see like coming out of nowhere, but unlikely, obviously.
Mhm. I guess my hope for Mandalorian season 2 is that I mean, people won't, but I hope they keep their expectations in check. It'd be 8 episodes of Barry Bonds hitting a home run into the river behind the baseball stadium. I kind of hope the final season of Clone Wars is prepping people for that, because like those last 4 episodes of that season are incredible, but not every episode of that season was like a grand slam. Like they were all good. It was a very good season, but not every episode was the last 4 episodes.
Mhm.
And that's fine. It doesn't need to be that way either, especially like now that we've also experienced how season 1 went, where we kind of went in, well, at least I kind of went into it thinking every episode was going to be hit after hit after hit, and they didn't. They still took time for filler episodes, side quests.
Mhm.
So I think people should go into this season with that same expectations. But a lot of the hype that I'm seeing towards season 2 so far is expecting
Bigger and better.
all 8 episodes being the 10 out of 10 every time. And that's going to lead to a lot of people being disappointed. But I think just take a moment to breathe. Just Favreau and Filoni got this. Just let them tell the story. You'll be okay. It's all going to lead to somewhere. They're not going to set us up like JJ would and not answer it.
Ruthless.
But before we go, though, I think we'll end. Jackson, you had been warning DJ and I for a while now that you had some
Yes.
takes that you wanted to drop.
A big take to
Let's
share.
end on some hot takes from you.
Okay. I know. So, loyal listeners will know we started this series with a watch through of the current Star Wars theatrical films, and we had some takes that differed, some takes that stayed the same.
Really?
And I've had one that's changed since then, and this
Okay.
might be a big one.
Okay.
But near the beginning, DJ and I agreed that Attack of the Clones was better than The Phantom Menace. And I have changed my mind. I've been thinking about it, and I think Phantom Menace has a little bit more to offer than Attack of the Clones.
Ah,
That's my take.
I also
Okay,
changed my mind.
So you've seen the light side then. Oh, you've
Yes.
changed your mind, DJ?
Yeah, you remember because when I broke my collarbone, nothing better to do
Oh,
with
that's
that life,
right,
I was
you
like, I'm gonna
rewatched it.
rewatch episode 1 because I guess I'll do that. I don't know. And you know what? I don't know why. Like I've rewatched that movie so many times to try to get what people will
I
say
know.
about it, and like I don't know why. For whatever reason, it just clicked the finally. So
There's entertainment value there.
it's a fine movie. That's the
There we go.
most
It's
I'll
a
give
no.
it.
Say it, DJ. Say it's a good
Fine
movie.
It's not a
It's
good
good.
movie. It's fine.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
fine.
It's so good. Oh man. Well, I'm glad you guys were able to turn around and come to the
Mhm.
light side. So, all right, that's not as I don't have to be as scared as I was leading into this. I was terrified you were
Should we
going to
I
have
know.
some
the
kind
entire
of
franchise right now?
I know. No, we shouldn't. That's
we
why
should do
I like to
another
build things up.
rewatch. But that's okay. That's a very good take to end on then.
Mhm.
But yeah, very excited to be back. Very excited to pod for the masses again. I've definitely missed it. I don't want to speak for Jackson or DJ. Maybe DJ's been,
Yes.
like
I hate this.
I was hoped we'd never come back, but because we did decide that you have to be the one when we have our inevitable personality controversy. You have to be the one
Cancellation.
that's
I'll take the bullet.
problematic.
I'll take the bullet for you guys. Don't worry about it.
But yeah, so Jackson, where can they find you at on the socials out on the internet?
Yeah, you can catch me on Twitter at Jackson W. Wells. I've been responding to some Star Wars takes online recently, some
That's a
really bad
mistake.
ones. So yeah, catch me for that. And if you unfollow me, I get it.
DJ, where can they find you at?
DJ_Gillard on Twitter. Yeah, that's right. You can do that every now if you want to, I guess, if you so
Okay.
choose.
Yeah, DJ, you're a fine follow. You can find me on Twitter at Papa Star Wars. That's been my updated Twitter handle change since even when we were on hiatus. It seems like the Papa Star Wars movement really took off on the internet, so I've embraced it finally, and that is now my branding. But you can find me on there. You can find the podcast again. I've mentioned it before, but you can find us on Twitter at Cantina Convo. We're also available in every podcast format that you can think of for your listening pleasure. And if you're watching us in video format, welcome. This is going to be kind of a new thing. Don't worry about how plain the details look for everything. Like everything that we do, we're learning on the fly as we go. So we will figure out outlays, editing, tech kind of stuff as we go. It'll only get better. You can start from the ground floor, so you can say you were one of the OG fans before we get cool and famous with all of our fans.
Remember all the tissue boxes back here? That's great.
Yeah,
they'll be gone next time.
Yeah,
maybe.
we'll be
Who
like,
knows?
remember when DJ had that brown box in a coat hanger? That was awesome. But only the
I didn't
real
even
ones
notice the
would
coat
know.
hanger.
Only the real ones would know. But anyway, thank you for joining. Look for us next Monday for an episode discussing the first episode of The Mandalorian season 2. Until next time, may the force be with you.